Raid Shadow Legends is, of course, a gacha game, and the way that gacha games work is by making the best abilities and the best skills on your champions basically the rarest they can possibly be, so that you have to spend extra money to try and get those particular champions or heroes that you're looking for. It's very much like Pokemon cards, but for people who have lost their virginity. So that being said, it is very rare that you'll see a champion in these games, especially at an epic or a rare level, that is an absolutely fantastic champion. But that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, and I have done a showcase of this champion on my account or on my channel before, but I think she is woefully underrated. She has a 4-star rating on the Hell Hades website, and I think it should be a 5, maybe even more than a 5 with how good she is. And I still use this champion a lot, even on my late game account. I'm going to be showing you exactly how I have her built as she is on my account. So this is the build that I use, and for some of you guys who have been around long enough, you might already know who it is. That's right, it's going to be Ruella from the Sylvan Watchers. She is absolutely sensational, and I think everybody should be using this champion regardless of where your account is, but certainly if you're a new player or a mid-game player who might have just pulled her, she is going to help you progress so much inside the game. What makes her so special? She is an A1, which is a 3x hitter. Each critical hit has a 100% chance of stealing 5% of the target's turn meter. So this is very much somebody like, say for example, an Allure, right? So they can decrease that turn meter on the A1. However, Ruella is stealing that turn meter, which helps her get back around to her other skills even quicker. We have an A2, attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense, a weakened, and a decreased speed. This is so incredibly strong. All of her skills have good multipliers. This one actually ranks as a godlike multiplier on the Hell Hades website. This is absolutely incredible. Now, she's not a Void champion, which is good because it means that she's easier to get, hypothetically at least. However, that means that she's going to have affinity matchup issues, especially when she's going against a magic affinity champion, right? So this wording is very important, where it says each hit has a 75% chance of placing all of those debuffs. So it's not, you know, the first hit places decreased defense, second hit places weakened, third, none of that garbage. It's just every single hit has a chance to place each of those debuffs, which is incredibly strong. And you might be thinking, well, this is only single target. How is this going to help my account? Well, very simply, because most areas of the game where you need somebody to come in and do damage and debuff, you're going to be fighting a boss at the end of that content. So she absolutely shines in Ice Golem, City of Centranos. Fire Knight obviously is a huge spot for her, especially if you're trying to progress. You can use her very easily in a dragon, anywhere that you can get decreased speed, defense, weaken, and, you know, land it on an enemy, right? You could even potentially use her in the lower levels of Hydra. Not to mention that you could, of course, use a champion that has a debuff spread effect, taking the debuffs from that particular enemy, placing it on everybody else would work very, very well with her. And finally, we have an A3 that fills the turn meters of all allies by 20% and places a 30% increased crit rate on them for 2 turns. This is absolutely incredible as well. It means, fundamentally, you can go ahead and build your damage dealers with 70% crit rate as long as she's going first. And then she's going to make sure that they do have that 100% crit rate, which is absolutely sensational. And finally, her kit's not over quite yet. She has an increased accuracy in dungeons by 40. This is absolutely insane. She's a cool looking champion. She is so good, and I don't really see people talking about her or giving her the credit that she deserves. So we're going to do that here today. For the blessing, I do have her built out inside Phantom Touch, which is going to give her additional resistance, accuracy, and a 75% chance of inflicting bonus damage. Obviously, if you have her 6-star Awaken with a 100% chance of inflicting the bonus damage instead, that is going to be a little bit better, all things considered. But even the 5-star, hell, even a 1-star Awakening is still going to be very strong. These are the stats she's rocking. 5,300 attack, 254 on the speed, 106 and 258 on the crit rate and crit damage respectively, and then 339 on the accuracy. We're going to be running her inside Fire Knight, so these are how her stats adjust inside the Fire Knight. I do have some area bonuses that are coming in there, and her accuracy in dungeons comes in very handy as well, because that's immediately 40 less accuracy that you have to build on your champions. To put in perspective how good that is, that's the equivalent of taking off an entire perception set, a 2-piece perception set off of your champion, just by having her in the lead, which is absolutely fantastic. In terms of a relic, I don't have anything on her quite yet. I am starting to get a decent amount of relics on my account, but these are mainly going to be used on champions that I use inside the Chimera, since that's where the majority of my relics are coming from, and I find it very important to be farming that week over week, of course. So relics to be determined. We're not going to talk about that in this guide. For masteries, it should be pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can't really see it because of my ginormous head, but I do come down to the Giant Slayer mastery, where she's going to have a 30% chance of inflicting bonus damage. And then Giant Slayer ensures that on all of her triple hitters, she can land that multiple times, so she can really stack up damage. When you start stacking just her raw DPS along with Phantom Touch procs, along with obviously the Giant Slayer, she can really chunk some damage off of boss health bars. Certainly not going to be something like a Ninja or a Newt or a Marius or something like that, but realistically, if you're just starting out, if you need a champion to fill teams in City of Centranos, if you need somebody to help you out with any sort of, boss content, even the Iron Twins, she's going to be good, people. Everywhere inside the game where you're fighting a boss, she is going to help you so much. Getting that decreased speed as well as decreased defense and weaken on the Iron Twins would be so nice, right? So let's go ahead and let's show her off inside Fire Knight 20, where I think she's probably going to be best suited. This is the team that we're going to be using. Pretty much as free to play friendly as I could potentially make it. All of these champions have substitutions. As I said in my last Iron Twins video, you guys got to watch this content and do a little bit of thinking for yourselves, right? Think about who could be substituted and used in this team instead. We have Queen Ava, who's probably going to be the hardest champion to get here. Bring a generic nuker, right? If you have Thor, bring him. Sun Wukong, going to work perfectly fine. Anybody who can do some damage and clear the waves. Then we have Coldheart, we have Apothecary, and then we have Ruella as well. There's no AI presets on this. Nothing special. We don't have this set up so that, Ruella is going to go first and then decrease the defense for Ava. Nothing like that. This is strictly me just taking 4 champions that I use in other areas of the game and putting them into this particular piece of content. And as you can see, we were hitting, like 40k per hit on the A2 and about 13k per hit on the A1 there. So very admirable damage from an epic champion who's not even built out in a damage dealing set. So she is in cruel, but she doesn't have lethal or savage or anything like that. So if you build her out in that, that would be a almost a quarter damage increase, which would be absolutely insane. And you can see those debuffs landing on the enemy targets is just so powerful, right? And this team is going to work very well because the enemy team is all Force Affinity champions, which means that there's a very solid chance that they're going to weak hit against either my Queen Ava or, of course, Ruella. Now, I'm not saying that she's going to help every single player watching this beat Fire Knight 20 with only 4 champions, because that's just not realistically, but she could help make that difference for you depending on what particular stage that you're trying to beat, right? So that is something to consider. We're already through the shield here because we got a Phantom Touch proc from the Coldheart. Now we have the increased turn meter as well as increased crit rate coming in on the Ruella. And I'm just going to stop this here for a second to talk about how impactful this is, right? So for a long time, people have been a fan of Coldheart, and one of the things with Coldheart is that her A3, the Heartseeker, the big money ability, has a 30% extra chance of inflicting a critical hit, so you only need to build her with 70% crit rate. Queen Ava also has an ability, I think it's all of her abilities are 15% chance more of inflicting a critical, so you only need to build her with 85. Ruella is going to take both of those numbers and reduce them by a further 20 with her A3, which is absolutely nuts, right? So 50% crit rate on your Coldheart is all you need to be landing crits with her A3. If you don't know how powerful that is absolutely insane, right? So think about it this way. A set of gauntlets is 60% crit rate on a champion. If you are very early game, you're running Ruella and you're running Coldheart together, a pair of gauntlets alone is enough to max out the crit rate on the majority of your champions with these two combined, right? So Coldheart, not maxing it out, let me clarify. So with Coldheart, that's going to max her crit rate to 100%, right? Gauntlets, that's it, you're done. With Queen Ava, you're getting pretty close. With any other champion, the 60% from the gauntlets and then 20% from Ruella is already 80%, right? It's going to be very hard to have an account that cannot find an additional 20% crit rate from the substats, and that means that you can build so much more stats into the rest of your priorities, right? So you can get more accuracy, you can get more speed, resistance, attack, whatever you need And that was a 60 turn clear with 4 champions. And as you can see, Ruella does some very admirable damage as well, right? For a debuffer, she does 654,000 for a single target debuffer. That is pretty damn good. She does fall off a little bit, obviously somewhere like Fire Knight Hard. You're not really going to see use cases from her because she doesn't have a freeze inside her kit, but certainly if you're trying to progress through the faction wars as well, she can be incredibly strong. There are certainly a lot of decent epic champions from Sylvan Watchers, but I would say she's probably in the top 1 to 2 of those epic champions, right? So the only other ones that I really see in the same discussion as her would be somebody like a Dithey, and then somebody like a Nia, right? Those are also absolutely fantastic champions, and I think those are probably the top 3 from the faction. I think, honestly, for me, Ruella is number 1. She is the epic from the Sylvan Watchers faction. Then after that, it's probably going to be Dithey and then Nia. Nia I wanted for quite some time, but I really only use her inside Hydra, so I don't get too much use out of her. But Ruella is used absolutely everywhere, man. There's been some tournaments that have come through where I've been able to use her as well if she fits into the prerequisites. She's such a strong champion, and if you look at like the rest of the champions inside this faction, there's not a whole lot in terms of debuffers, right? Especially somebody that can place decreased speed, defense, and weaken. It's absolutely insane. Obviously, we have Dithey who can place the decreased defense, but that's all he brings. So you don't get a decreased speed or anything like that. So she can help you control waves. She can help you probably even in Spider Hard pretty effectively. Potential video idea there for future Gear Bear. That being said, let me know down below, why am I getting offered this? I have completed the champion. Raid, what is this? Look at this. I have the champion. He's ready to summon. Why am I being sent offers to buy more fragment? Whatever. This is a good place to end the video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope everybody's having a great 2025 so far. This is officially the first video I've recorded on the channel in 2025. I had one that went live on New Year's Day, but that was recorded like 2 days prior, so it is the second today as of recording this. I hope everybody's having a great year so far, and I hope it continues to be a great year for you. Thank you all so much for the support on the channel. See you next time.